So what I like to do first is mix my color. So keep in mind the light areas are going to be colors like yellow, light orange, maybe like a light red or light pink. The darkest areas are typically going to be like blues and purples, those shadow areas, and so all the other colors are really good for mediums. Pretty much any of those colors could be the background. I know at least Bert is mostly going to be blues and purples, and so I might want to go with more of like a contrasting color for the background. That's just my preference, or I mean really I could go with whatever color I want as long as it's light enough. So what I like to do is, I might say true to my lovely turquoise color because I just love it so much. So you'll want to get your blue, whatever color you choose, real wet. And then what I do is I make a puddle. So I kind of wipe it off into my lid here. Yep, that's all we're going to be doing. But we need to mix our color first. And so I like that turquoisey color. So I'm also going to need to rinse out my brush real good. And then I'm going to get my green wet as well and start putting some green into that same area. Because, right, blue-green is pretty much my turquoise color. I like it a little bit more blue than green. And then I'm just going to start adding a bunch of just water to this and getting it really wet and puddly. Okay, so it's hard for you to see my color, but it's probably going to be real light, but that's okay. And I'm going to set my paints off to the side so I can have access to my whole board here. All right, we are going to be using a wet on wet technique, okay? Which basically means you are just going to paint everything first that you want to paint in water. Now guys, this watercolor paper will hold a lot of water. It's going to soak quite a bit up. So it really takes a long time just to get it layered with enough water. A wet on wet technique is important because it kind of helps everything blend well together. And I kind of do I have a looser watercolor type style, and so if it's not perfect, it's okay. So I'm just trying to get as much water on there as I can, and I'm kind of looking at it at different angles in the light so I can really see how much water's there. You do have to work kind of fast because what happens naturally? It's drying, okay? So you just kind of keep having to add and go over it. And eventually you'll notice that it stays kind of shiny. You don't want it pooly, you just want it kind of shimmery. When it's shimmery, you know you have kind of layered enough water on it. From edge to edge. I'm going from edge to edge and around my subject here. You really want to make sure no part of your paper is dry because it will totally change the look of the paint. You really want your paint to just bleed out. Yeah, you're not painting your object or your animal, your pet, your subject. You are just painting in the background with water. I feel like mine's getting pretty good. So when it's pretty wet looking and shimmery, now you're just going to start kind of dabbing in your color randomly, kind of around. You really want it to bleed. And it will just, if you have enough water on it, it's going to naturally just kind of spread out and kind of bleed in different directions. I like mine a little bit lighter right around the subject, so I might kind of spread some of this out after I get it kind of dotted around. And then I like it a little bit darker kind of towards the edges but just super random is almost best. If it looks too kind of planned out, I feel like it doesn't look as good. But that's just me. So I'm going to kind of just dot extra into my corners. Also, another thing that this does when you put more into the corners is I feel like it makes that that kind of tape border stand out just a little bit more. So I am just dabbing this in. If you feel like you have puddles, a good way to do it is your paintbrush is kind of like a sponge. So if you squish the water out and you just hold it in these areas, you can take out a lot of that paint that's pooling. I always have some pools. I don't know what that little flaky thing is. Another thing that you can do to this background is take maybe a color that's similar. Like maybe I want to add just a little green splatter to it. I don't want it dark, so I'm probably going to mix it. Add a little bit of water. And then you kind of just flick it around, which I got some in Bert's face, but I'll take it out. And you guys can't see as much detail as I can, but see how I got some splatter right in the middle of Bert's face here? Yeah. So I'm going to take my paintbrush and just try and dab that out. No big deal, as long as I can kind of get it wet and then dab it out. Another thing that can be kind of cool to do, which, again, you don't have to do everything, but sometimes you can splatter with just plain water, and it will kind of almost reverse splatter, like it will leave white spots instead, which can be kind of cool. Anyway, as always, I say less is more. And so I'm going to stop going over this. I'm going to leave it the way it is and let it dry. So you want to leave these as flat as possible to dry. If you have puddles, you're going to want to get rid of those puddles before you put it on the drying rack because it is slightly at an angle there. Okay? So I don't really have enough puddles that it's going to, I kind of have a puddly area here, I guess. But basically, you want to be able to have it slightly tilted on the drying rack and not worry about pools kind of pouring one direction or the other, dripping one direction or the other.